my favorite video of the year. This is everything that I've crocheted and knitted since the beginning of 2024. As I started pulling everything out of the closet, I realized I had forgotten a good amount of the things that I had started. Here I go, already dropping everything onto the floor. But let's go ahead and run through everything that I've finished making throughout the year. These are always some of my favorite videos to make because you get a really big taste or like a glimpse into different designs, different elements that I started incorporating. And to be honest, a lot of these are very different from each other. I've got low-end yarn, high-end fibers, thick chunky knits, as well as like the more lightweight summery pieces. So we're just gonna start pulling these out in no specific order. But hello and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Erin, and as you can tell, we love fiber arts. And for those of you who are returning, you've probably seen a ton of these different makes throughout different videos in the year. I do think I'm gonna make this kind of like a try on. I will say that this year is the year that I feel like I jumped into using a lot more color. I'm much more of like a neutrals girl, so grays, blacks, greens, earth tones. But for some reason, this is much more eclectic than I'm used to, so I'm kind of interested to see how my color preferences are going to change next year. I'm out here in a tank top, and today is a snow day. So at least we got the snow vibes. We got Christmas going on, we put up the Christmas tree, and we're going to set the tone and jump into them. Starting with the Tarantino top. Now this was initially knitted with the vision of having something very lightweight, a little bit see-through, more so something with a casual drape that I can kind of throw on over everything. I believe I made this at the very start of spring. I knitted this with the Hobbii Friends Kid Silk. I double stranded because it's more of a lace weight mohair type of project. And then because I had knitted it all in white, once it was finished, that is when I threw it into the dye pan, and I kind of wanted to see how the colors were gonna lay. If you guys didn't catch on, I wanted to name it the Tarantino top because I kind of did it out of order. One thing I will say is that the shape and the fit of this top looked so perfect right after I had finished knitting with it. But once I had gotten it all wet, I think I stretched it out a little bit too much in the pan, maybe a little bit too much tugging and pulling, because now that this piece has been dried for a while, the fit of it is very different from when I had first made it. Not mad at it though, but there were a few things that kind of threw me off, like the length of the sleeves really got stretched out. The drape of it over my body changed and kind of elongated. Since moving, I really haven't worn this piece too much, but now that I'm throwing her back on, I think that's so cute. This is a piece that I feel is gonna have to make its way back into my rotation. Project number 2, the round scrappy rug. Obviously this is not a wearable, so I can't really throw it on, but you know, it's kind of given like poncho vibes. This could be a look maybe if I had made it a little bit larger, but because it's a rug, you know, it's just sitting on the floor in our bedroom. I believe I made this with the Hobbii, I think it's the Hobbii Amigo, it's the DK weight. And believe it or not, I used 3 different strands of yarn to make this project. So at every point throughout this piece, I always had 3 strands of yarn on my hook, and I kind of just changed them out however I felt as I was going. If you guys are interested, I do have a full tutorial and a pattern on this rug because it's really that simple. But started with a magic circle, worked in the round, kept on adding increases, and voila, you have a round scrappy rug. Projects number 3 and number 4 are my matching set that I made with Suki. I was making this with the Jody Long Alba Aran. It's a number 4 worsted weight. Initially set out to make a tutorial on a puppy sweater, which I also have a tutorial and a pattern available. So this is what I came up with. As I'm looking at this, it looks like a pretty large sweater, and it kind of looks like it could still fit Suki, but it kind of goes without saying that this doesn't fit her anymore. I think I made this for her when she was around, oh my gosh, maybe like 4 months old, and I tried to put this on her a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it definitely doesn't fit. I couldn't even get this over her shoulders, and because I had enough yarn left over, we went ahead and made Mom a matching raglan top. Now this one is also really fun because yes, I have a pattern and a tutorial out, but I was kind of spitballing with this idea of taking that traditional raglan design and then implementing more of a V-neck style. So instead of having it connected all the way across the front, you can see that I started really wide And then over time, I added more increases at the center. And then from there on, it's kind of more of that traditional raglan aspect. So yeah, I have that little lace up at the center. This was so cute to wear at the beginning of summer. But I think with the choice of having the wool and alpaca yarn towards the end of summer, this thing was so hot. And that's the funny part, is that it's technically a crop top and I would be sweating my ass off in this. So I have this varsity top. Project number 5 is the official V-neck raglan top. As you can see, they are pretty much the exact same project. Now this is the new and improved varsity top. It fits me and it shapes my body much better than the last one. Not nearly as much gaping, just a little bit more snug. And this is the one that the pattern is actually based off of. This one is also a favorite from the year just because of the yarn that I used. I bring up Noro yarn a lot here on my channel just because for me, it's the cream of the crop. It's some of the most delectable yarn. I will admit, they are some of the most pricey yarn that I've seen out there, but in my own personal opinion, it is always worth it. I've never regretted using a Noro yarn. This, I believe, is the Noro, I think this is Noro Subame. Kind of slubby, but I think it's technically classified as a roving yarn. It's all a single ply, but the really cool thing is that it's an extremely tight ply. I love her. This one is a 10 out of 10. Now, something that just occurred to me that I think I want to try in the future is instead of having an open lace up at the center, I think it would also be really fun to hand sew in a zipper so that I can kind of zip this all the way up. So I might start implementing some zippers possibly at the start of the year. Next, we have the In Bloom top. I won't lie, this is a project that I definitely forgot about in the later half of the year. Technically, I believe I had finished this project at the end of 2023, but the pattern wasn't released until February of this year, so we still need to do a little shout out for her. And now that I see her again, I think I'm gonna get a lot more use out of her just because she's so adorable. First and foremost, I got to use my own hand-dyed yarn, which is something that I've been trying to keep in mind as I make projects throughout the year. I do run my own hand-dyed yarn business, and this was a piece where I really set out to use one of my newer yarns at the time. So this is in the colorway River Spirit. I wanted to pick something that was a little bit more neutral, but still had little pops of color. With this pattern, if you look really closely, we have these gorgeous, I almost want to call them like flower clusters, but this was a pattern that really challenged me. I had just barely started getting into pattern writing, and with each pattern that I put out, I really tried to kind of excel my limitations. The drape of this, 10 out of 10. The design, the little textural elements, 10 out of 10. I'm gonna get back to wearing her more often. Micro shorts. This was a trend that had everybody and their mother in a chokehold. Definitely something that I did not predict happening this year, but once I saw people making micro shorts, I dove headfirst into it. These are by far my favorite pair of micro shorts that I've created. I made these with the Elise Diva stretch yarn. It has such an insane amount of stretch, but something that I've noticed is that it always bounces back to its original form. As you guys know with crochet, projects can get stretched out very easily, and more often than not, they don't really retain their original shape. So once you've kind of worn it a handful of times, there's not really any saving it. So this was kind of a standout yarn for the year that I didn't expect to fall in love with so much. I could have made these actually a little bit longer just because they are rather revealing, but again, if I'm just kind of bebopping around the house, I have no shame. I will wear these things. And of course, another project that I do have a full tutorial on, so I'll link it up here somewhere if you guys are interested in making these. You could take this type of pattern, this design, and then extend the legs all the way. So you could have like lounge pants. Close up of this yarn because it has a natural sheen or shine to it. And again, so darn stretchy. And then I have the next set of crochet shorts. They're slightly different. It was made with a thicker weight of yarn. This is a DK weight, so a number 3 lightweight. This is the Hobie Friends Kids Silk. I absolutely love this yarn. Not only does it come with variegated, kind of like blocky colors, but they also have a line of solid color in their silk cotton line. So if you guys haven't checked out the Hobie Friends Kids Silk, you should probably stock up on that before spring hits because that's going to be a ride or die for the year. This would be a really great yarn option for extending these all the way to make like lounge pants. So that also might be a project for start of spring, possibly like a lounge pant tutorial. The rose halter top. This one is also another favorite from the entire year. I had so much fun designing this one. I really wanted to kind of get out of my element and create something that was a little bit more feminine, definitely going to show off my figure a lot more, and we ended up with the rose halter top. This was also made with my own hand-dyed yarn in the colorway Wisteria. It's a very gorgeous pastel lilac colorway with a ton of speckling. And then of course we have this really cute meshy, almost like eyelet design at the body portion. Another fun thing with this top is that you have this cute little 3D rose at the center of your top. I felt like this was a little bit too plain on its own, but adding this into the center not only kind of helps to cover up cleavage. I wrote the pattern in a way that you could take the rose off and wear it as like a little necklace or a choker. So it's a little bit multifaceted. There's a few different ways that you can kind of style and wear this top. The Avatar Advent Project. Now this one is a little bit different from the others because clearly she's knitted. So this lovely little make right here was my first time ever hosting an Advent project. Obviously with my small hand-dyed yarn business, I make dyed to order yarns, but one of my really big goals for the start of this year was to start putting together collections and advents of yarn. I don't quite remember the name of the designer, so I will leave it here on screen. But yes, we knitted this piece with all 14 different colorways. The outpouring of love and support that I had from you guys for my first ever Advent really set the tone for the year. I didn't know what to expect, hosting my own Advent. And to see how many of you guys really wanted to be a part of that is a feeling that's going to stick with me till the end of time. I want to say I had close to 30 people participate in the Advent, which was remarkable. Again, I had no expectations. Staying on theme, we have the Midsummer Advent. Now this is a project that I have kind of mixed feelings about, so I'll get into it. First and foremost, we need to talk about the colorways. Again, for this Advent, I was aiming for a total of 14 different colorways. We have a ton more color, a lot more saturation. This is by Mason Jar Yarns. It is supposed to be like a shruggy type of cardigan, something that you can kind of just throw on over your shoulders. I will say their design looks absolutely gorgeous. It's why I chose it in the first place. But I think my execution, let's be honest, it's a little bit lacking. Because I was limited to a certain yardage amount, I knew that I couldn't complete the same exact sizing that they had in their pattern. So I did choose to kind of tweak it and make my own subtle adjustments. But overall, I think I kind of shot myself in the foot, because the fit that I achieved is not the fit that is shown in the photos. And again, that's not their fault, it's on me for changing up the pattern a little bit. I will show you guys a little bit of a close-up because it's a gorgeous kind of variation between some standard stitches and then more of like a seashell stitch, the shell stitch. I think also this type of design would have looked a lot better in something that was a little bit more tonal or solid color. But again, because I was switching out between 14 different colors, I did end up with a completely different look. It's a little saggy and it doesn't quite sit on me the way that I feel a shruggy should. As I was wearing this and kind of roaming around town, it was constantly falling off of my shoulders, whereas I was looking for something that was really going to kind of stay up on its own. She's just so cute. There's so much color. I really do wish I wore this one more, but because I kind of botched my own Advent project, I'm gonna have to give this one a 6 out of 10. We gotta be real, okay? I'm always getting DMs and comments about where can I get the Advent yarn, or I missed it, I was too late. If you guys want to partake in future Advent projects or even collections of yarn that I put out, then please make sure to follow my Instagram because I try to post everything over on there. With my YouTube videos, I film them at least a week or two in advance. So usually by the time that it goes live on my channel, it's a little bit too late to place orders for the Advent. So yeah, for all those who want to stay up to date on future Advent projects and collections and launches, you gotta go follow the Instagram. If you don't, you might miss out. The Lace Summer Tank. Now this one was a very simple project. There really wasn't too much that went into this, but for me, the standout point with this top is the fiber. I was sent the Jody Long Delish yarn from Knitting Fever. So I really kind of wanted to test out the fiber and how it was going to act, but what makes this so luxurious is the fiber content. Now this is made with 50% mulberry silk, I believe, and then 50% extra fine merino wool. So overall it has a very delectable silky feel to it. It is so lightweight. Honestly, as I'm kind of looking at my projects, I've really been like a silk girl this year. I feel very bougie, but honestly, if we're going through the effort to hand make all of our projects, we might as well make it with some top-notch high quality yarns. This is like a lacy silky tank. It almost has a slippery feel to it. You'll notice as well, I don't traditionally wear bright neon orange and yellows, so this was something that, again, I really wanted to kind of just push myself to make something different, and this boy got so much wear at the end of summer. I really love this one. Another project that has a full tutorial and pattern will be linked everywhere that it can be, but it's just such a simple summer make. The top is reversible, so you can wear it front ways, back ways. Having a silk fiber is like a ride or die. It's gonna save you, especially when you're sweaty and it's muggy and it's hot out. Not much to say about her. She's a summer tank. The Made You Look 2.0 top by Ocean Knits. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I hadn't really filmed anything on this. I definitely didn't share any updates. Funny enough, this was a last minute project that I decided to make as we are driving from California to Massachusetts. So this was kind of like my little therapeutic car knitting project. For a very long time, I've had my eye on this pattern, so I decided to bite the bullet, but the Made You Look 2.0 top kind of gives me like cottage core vibes, very feminine. What I love so much about this pattern is the bust shaping, and then also with the 2.0 you double strand the yarn in the bust area so that you have more coverage and also more stretch. So that is something that I was really looking forward to kind of testing out for my first time. This was also knitted using my Lotus Pond on my silk DK weight. So this is made with 50% silk and 50% superwash yarn. This one is very, very slippery. I think I could have subbed out the yarn for something that was 100% superwash. That way it had a little bit more squish to it. I need to kind of show a close-up because for the year, I feel like Lotus Pond was my favorite colorway that I dyed up. Now I will try it on for this video, but I believe that I made this top a little bit too tight, a little bit too small. So my chesty besties don't quite stay in the top as much as I wish that they would. I think blocking this top would also help it a little bit with its shape. I can kind of enlarge it a little bit so that it's not super tight on me. The Jordan tank. If anybody was wondering what my all-time favorite project of the year was, I think I'd have to safely go out on a limb and say that it has to be this tank in particular. Now, first and foremost, I used the Noro Yarns Yukata. It's a number 2 sport weight made with a mixture of silk and wool and God knows what else. The Yukata line has to also be some of my favorite all-time yarn. The drape on this tank is something that I could only dream of. Initially made this with the vision of Jordan wearing it, but the funny thing is that it's just large enough that I could also wear it myself. Now this colorway in particular, it has me gasping all day long. I love that for the most part. It's very neutral. You've got deeper tones in there, but then there's just little tiny pops of pink. Okay, you guys know I'm not the biggest pink girl, but when it's implemented in such a way that it's just a little highlight standout, I think that is where I find my love for pinks and like fuchsia colors. And it has a very ever so slight sheer effect. Definitely nothing too revealing, but I made this during summer, so of course I wanted my stitches to be very, very breathable. Just look at the texture of this stitch. It looks honestly like a little complicated, but it's so simple and so gorgeous. I think this tank also stands out just because of all the different color changes. This would also be really cute during the winter months, I think, with a little turtleneck underneath. I love this, and more specifically, I love it on Jordan. Full tutorial and pattern available on my channel. Ironically, this being my favorite design, this tutorial has like the least views, And this was also like my least performing pattern. And to no one's surprise, I have Jordan Tank number 2. This was made as a commission for my friend. We want to exchange art for art, but I took that initial Jordan Tank pattern and made a few different tweaks. He was looking for something a little bit more muscle tank style, so he wanted deeper set armholes and something a lot more wide. So you can see that here, the armholes run all the way down almost to the hip, but it kind of gives like that Cali muscle tank vibe that you're going for. We have a very basic kind of free-form bandana. Made this on the road trip from Cali to Massachusetts. This one probably only took me like an hour and a half. I did double strand this yarn with, I think it's more Jody long, it might be Flora, but it's a linen cotton blend, very lightweight. Just something I really kind of wanted to whip up during the drive so that I had something cute to wear. And since we got here to Massachusetts, I was wearing this so much. I feel like it's a really simple way to kind of jazz up your outfit, especially something like this. It's very plain, but you still want that pop of crochet, okay? We want to show off our handmade things. We've got the green and pink bandana, and I think she's dashing. Ultimately, I ended up with this really interesting meshy technique. There was really no rhyme or rhythm to this, just kind of aiming for that triangle design. So cute. Probably could have made it a little bit bigger, but I love it. A really quick and easy way to kind of just accessorize your outfit without having to mess up whatever good juju you got going on down here. Crochet mittens. These were made for Jordan for his birthday back in November. I had just figured out how to make crochet mittens for the first time ever. As I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing, me coming from Cali, there's never really been a need to dress too warmly, okay? Even wool in the dead of winter in Cali is too warm. So my first mittens ever, these were completely free-handed, so you'll excuse the fact that one mitten is larger than the other. I made this with Tony's Apricity. This is a collab yarn between Hobie Yarns and Tony from TL Yarn Crafts. Again, this is the Apricity. It's like a number 6, I believe, and it's made with like wool and alpaca. It's such a fluffy, lightweight, very squishy type of fiber. So we kind of whipped these up last minute. Now that my hands are hurting, we need to kind of think proactively and protect our little fingers, because these are the money makers right here. I feel like they weren't made long enough, so my adjustment with the next set of mittens, voila, we have these here. Obviously they're like much larger. Oh, it's actually not that terrible. These fit Jordan a lot better just because his hand and his fingers are a lot longer. And then something that I wanted to implement was a double band, so I kind of just made my initial ribbed band super long, like almost ridiculously long. And then I was able to fold this up and voila, there we have it. So simple. I was able to whip this out, I think, in about 2 hours for him. So I have been thinking about putting together a tutorial on these mittens, specifically because I end up with a left facing glove and a right facing glove. So yeah, we've got mittens here for the end of the year. Another last minute project, my scrappy vertical striped beanie. I still had so much yarn left over from Tony's Happy Place drop, so I kind of wanted to use a mixture of about 8 or 9 of the different shades that were sent to me. We ended up with this. I do have a full tutorial on this exact beanie on my channel, but I do kind of want to revamp it because there are a few things that I've adjusted since then, and it is also kind of hard to see on camera. But with this beanie, I do have a tapering to the top. I really don't like how beanies look on me when there's all this excess fabric sitting on top of my head. I feel like it kind of just changes up my face shape, and it's not necessarily the most flattering. So I do have some shorter rows worked at the top of the beanie and then standard rows worked at the base. Changed out my colors every few rows. Yeah, I believe this was a last minute anniversary gift for Jordan. I was like, I need to bring something to the table. So I decided to whip up this beanie. I think I made it in just under a day, and this might also have to be my favorite beanie that I've ever made. Another spur of the moment project, this is my scrappy scarf. I had, again, so much yarn left over from Tony's Apricity, so I really just used the exact same colors. I was just trying to finish up whatever I had left, and I ended up with this somewhat micro scarf effect. I was aiming for something actually a little bit thinner, but then as I got going, it kind of did its own thing. You know, my hands they do what they want to do. So it's not super micro, but at the same time, it's not like a super thick scarf. If I'm not mistaken, I believe I used half double crochets for this whole project. I wanted to keep it as simple as possible so that I could whip through it even faster. Kind of think of this as like my little Netflix make. Changed out my colors however I wanted. Some sections are a lot shorter and then some colors are a lot longer, just aiming for that scrappy look. Something I wasn't intending was to leave all of my ends hanging out. As I finished the project, of course, I had all of these leftover ends, so I thought I was gonna save it for a different day. Came the day where I wanted to wear it and I realized I didn't weave anything in. So we're gonna leave her as is. I'm really too lazy to go back and weave in like 60 of these ends. But I feel like it also adds a little some extra, makes it look like a little bit more unique, a little bit more eclectic. The vertical stripe top. Now, right off of the bat, this one is kind of a crazy piece. Obviously, the colorway itself really stands out. This is made with Hobie's Tea Time XL. It's a number 4 worsted weight. I believe it's 100% acrylic, but the colorway is insane. In the cake, there are a lot more of these kind of like subtle mermaid colors, but as I started crocheting up with it, you'll notice this crazy mixture of like highlighter colors. So you got this really bright neon pink. I had a lot of fun working with short rows. So with this top, of course, again, I am working vertically. I'm starting my panel this way, and then I'm kind of working across the top. So I really wanted to implement these gussets, which are essentially short rows. And what I'll do is I'll work my rows like normal, but towards the end of this top, as I'm working back up the next row, I start decreasing my stitches. So I start working with shorter and shorter stitches. Kind of think of this as going from a double crochet to a half double crochet to a single crochet to a slip stitch. And overall, when I do that, you kind of get these little triangle short row features. So I did use those a few different times at the base of the top, as well as using that same technique along the sleeves. Coming down here to the very last make of the year, my grandpa sweater. Now at the moment, this pattern is being tested. I already selected my testers. A few of them are really close to finishing up their sweater, but this is something that I had planned since about the middle of summer. I was really trying to pick out a more unique stitch, something that was definitely going to stand out. But knowing that I was gonna have my first full-on winter here on the East Coast, I really wanted to prioritize sweaters. I'm not sure of the actual correct terminology, but I kind of like to classify this as an eyelet stitch. So you get these little peekaboo moments, and I feel like that's really gonna help with the airflow. For this sweater, I used the Noro Madara. So the Noro Madara, I believe, is wool and like 2 other things. And I didn't want the sweater to be too hot. So I feel like the eyelets on the sweater are still gonna allow a nice amount of airflow in there. This would be perfect to wear also if you have like a thermal underneath or even like a bralette. But another feature that I love about this is the really high, tight neckline. When I think of an old school traditional grandpa sweater, I think about something that kind of resembles like the 80s and the 90s. So the body of the sweater is gonna be kind of oversized, kind of baggy, but then at the base of the sweater, the bottom band kind of cinches in and hugs you. I'm really excited to see the final outcomes of all of my pattern testers. Yeah, honestly, I could go on and on about this sweater, but I think I'll save it for when the pattern is released. This is also a top 5 make of the year, and I have to give this bad boy an 11 out of 10. That is gonna wrap up everything, almost everything that I crocheted and knitted in the year of 2024. As I look back, so much has happened this year that I feel like I wasn't prepared for. And it's just really crazy to see the growth at the start of the year versus where we are now. Right at the start of January, Jordan and I had just moved out into our own apartment, our first ever apartment. We had also just gotten a puppy. We got Suki. Now she's already a year old, which is kind of insane to think about. Towards the later half of the year, we moved again, which is not something that we planned for. But all of these things kind of just fell into the right place at the right time. And alas, here we are. Of course, I want to continue working on the yarn business. I want to get on a more consistent schedule. I want to start putting out seasonal collections on time though, like not late behind the 8 ball like I usually am. There's a lot of planning and prepping that I need to do for the start of next year, but so many things to come, and I hope that you guys stick around for the journey. That's gonna be it for today's video. I love you guys. Bye.